Welcome to today's episode for people interested in the extraordinary, yet ancient and often long forgotten stuff. This is your host, Joseph Schinwald from homebythebeach.com. And our guest today is Kandis James. Hello, Kandis.
Hello, it's so nice to be here. Thank you.
It's such an honor to have you. And I'm so interested in this topic today, which is how to get out of your head and into your life, which is at the same time the title of your book. And I just wanted to have it as a topic because we can talk a little bit about a book also. And it's super interesting for spiritual people and for people who are really interested in discussions about ultimate reality and all this, because it's very difficult to get out of your head and into not just your life, but also into what it means to be in reality, correct? So let me shortly introduce Kandis. Kandis James is a dream life strategist. She's an author, podcast host, and applied mindfulness and NLP certified life and success coach. She's also the leader of the YOLO revolution, and we will hear more about this during the interview. Rooted in the fact that the only life we are guaranteed to live is the one we are currently living, Kandis helps people overcome their fears and transcend the destructive mental programming they've received during their lifetime, so they can harness the true power of their mind and finally create and live a life they love from the inside out. Kandis, how do you define life? That would be my first question, because, once we make a definition of certain topics, but life is a big topic, right? It has lots of connotations. So how do you define it? And then I would like to ask you, what was your journey about, which brought you to write a book about it and become a dream life strategist? So let's start with the definition of life.
Start with a really easy question, the definition of life.
Yes. Yeah, I got to the easiest first. And we become more difficult.
The definition of life. Wow. For me, life is this time period that we have here on earth in our human body. And there is many different ideas of what happens after that, before that, all what we are connected to and what have you, right? But I focus really on our human existence here on this earth in this life, in that we cannot guarantee what's going to happen when we die from this body. We cannot guarantee what's going to happen. And so all we know really for sure is this. And, I was really inspired one day when I heard the Dalai Lama. Somebody asked the Dalai Lama, what is the meaning of life? And his response was happiness. And I thought, man, there are just so many people out there that are not living in connection with their true self, their true being, and they are not happy, and in the simplest form, we don't know how long we have here. We don't know what happens next. And so really, truly, it's about making the most of what you have here and finding the most amount of joy and excitement and fulfillment and peace that you can while you're here, because that's really all that we know that we have.
Yes. So that is a fantastic definition. I would say, totally right. Even the Upanishads, when you go to ancient India, the Vedas, part of it are the Upanishads. These are the writings of sages, of great yogis who meditated many thousands of years ago. They would always start with the incredible wisdom, of the Vedas and of the Upanishads, the sayings. Well, nobody knows. That's the first thing. All these enlightened people, they say, all these people who were awakened, nobody knows. We don't know. We have to actually get used to it. That this is a reality, a life where it's good to not know everything, because otherwise it wouldn't be that kind of magic it is.
Exactly.
So there is these limitations we have through our physical senses. But I do not say that we don't have, maybe you can sense it a little bit, feel it a little bit, like an unlimited mind, big mind. Maybe mind is not the right word either. It would have to be defined. Maybe it's like who we really are. Like you talked about the Dalai Lama in Buddhism, they call it suchness. So there is the void, there are the phenomena, but ultimately we always returning to our own reality. And we are, in Hinduism, the self. And the self is what it is. We can't make an abstraction of it, because then again we are in the head and we want to actually be here and enjoy life and not see it as a problem to be solved. So that is a very nice definition you offered. And the next thing I really would like to know is, so when did you come, because your book is about it also, right? It's about getting out of your head into your life. So what made you in your journey, in your life journey, what brought you to write a book about it and then become a dream life strategist?
It was largely my own journey through the first part of my life, feeling unfulfilled, empty, like there was some type of void in my life. And I chose to fill that with things such as too much alcohol and drugs and parties, and in a way to try to create this joy for myself, because I had done what I had been told I was supposed to do, right? Like finish school, get the good grades, go to college, finish college, get a good job, go, boom, 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 do all these things that our society so often holds as like the way to success, how you're supposed to live your life. And when I got there, I was just miserable and looking for all these things outside of me that I thought was going to help bring the joy and the fulfillment and all of that I had thought I was working towards in my life. And it just wasn't showing up. And so, I would dream of doing all of these different things. I wanted to travel. Like I grew up in Canada. I felt very closed off. I felt like I only had one perception of the world, right? My reality was someone who was born as a white female in a middle to upper class neighborhood in one of the safest cities in the country. And that was what I knew the world as. And I knew that there was so much more out there, and I wanted to get out there and experience it. And at the same time, my mind kept telling me that, no, that's not the right thing to do. That's irresponsible. That's selfish. That's, impossible even. Like there's no way you could actually do that. My mind just kept telling me all these reasons why I couldn't. It's not the right thing to do. And who would I disappoint? And what will people think? And blah, blah, blah.
you lived 5 years in Thailand, and then several in Italy. So you have been making this a step, and you wanted this experience, and you believed in it ultimately, and you did it, So you did distance yourself from all this critiques and
I thankfully had someone say something to me. It's not that you can't, it's that you are not making it a priority. And it just clicked in my head at that moment that I can do whatever the heck I want to do. And I dreamt it. And within 18 months, I had gotten rid of all my condo and all of that stuff. And I found myself on a plane to Thailand. And I was supposed to stay for about 3-4 months. And I ended up living there for 5.5 years, traveling to over 15 countries, building a business, like figuring out like, if this is the lifestyle that I want, if I want to be traveling, if I want to be doing all of that, like envision it, create it, do what it takes, and everything and anything becomes possible if you truly believe that you're going to go there and stay on that mission.
Yeah, you have to definitely believe in yourself. And, the Thailand is the land of the 1,000 Buddhas. So it's a lot of stuff to discover there, right? I myself, I was actually traveling with 2 high school friends after high school. We went like 8 months traveling in Latin America. Then I went back and I tried medicine. I didn't like it. And I went 2 years to India. So I do understand what you're talking about. But how did you come then to the idea to writing a book? Like the name of it is Get Out of Your Head into Your Life.
Yeah. So after I was living in Thailand, and then I was in Italy, and I was doing all these things, and I would come home or I'd talk to people from home, and everyone would say, man, I wish I could do that. Or, oh man, you're so lucky, or whatever. Right. And I would say to them, it's not about luck. finding a way to make it happen, right? Oh, well, I can't because this. Yeah, I know. I used to say that, right? And so I would come back and see all these people just stuck in like this hamster wheel of what they think they should be doing and telling me how lucky I am. And I think it was really my way to help them see, like, if you stop allowing your mind to tell you what you cannot do, then you can do anything. And there really are no excuses anymore, right? When you can step away from that sort of the jail of the thoughts of your mind, if you attach to them, then you're never going to see the possibility and opportunities in your life. And so that's sort of what the book was about, to help people see where their mind is holding them back and how they can push forward through that and the steps that they can do so that they can visualize and create a life that actually fills them with joy. Because I feel sad when I see so many people just trudging through life as if it's just something to get through versus something to live and experience and enjoy and just be a part of.
Yeah, for me it's very similar also, because when you are a resident of this world, you are here to experience stuff and not to think about it. You should think about it just like when somebody is going like on a hiking the mountains of Mallorca, which is very popular where I live right now on the island in Spain. It's nice to have a map to look a little bit at the internet and see the trail. But this is not the journey, the map is not the territory. And we, as spiritual people who are interested in all kinds of philosophies, poets, scriptures, we sometimes lose the fact that these are just metaphors, or these are just similes, or these are just words. These are just pointers. This is not where we should stay. We should come to the experience. And, some people, they have a very urgent motivation to actually go after the experiences. And others, they feel stuck. And because they live a life which is unfulfilled, because they never get to experience what they really desire. That's why they are here. Because you're learning from experience, correct? And then you reflect back and you grow as a person, you grow. And who knows? We don't know, but maybe we just came to this place to have experiences, right? We didn't come here to solve the problem of life, because there is no problem.
There is no like innate problem with life, but we create so many problems in our mind, right? Just to almost for something to do when there's so much better things that we can be doing.
In fact, I think we do create problems when we get stuck in life, because we may not believe in having this experience. We may not believe in the desired outcomes of that experience, which we so desire. And there are many experiences. By the way, I even think that this is one of our uniqueness, because even though we are born in different places, different times, but ultimately we have this choice, this freedom to choose our experience, what we want, in life. I want to become this. I want to do that. Everybody has a different choice. And that is also the uniqueness we have. But I see it really clearly, the problem when you get stuck because you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe that you can actually have those experiences, like traveling. Well, there are other experiences, right? Many experiences, like having that perfect husband or wife, right? And you don't believe in it, or having that career or that business. If you don't believe in it, it's like you're running and you say, I'm going to do this marathon, but if you don't believe in it, or I want to jump 3 meters, whatever, I don't believe in it, I can never do it. So you have to believe in it.
Absolutely. I think that's the absolute key, right? When you shift from thinking of it as something that is sort of outside of your grasp, and then saying, no, this is basically done. It's just a matter of time before it is, right? And it's that shift. And like, there is no other way that it's going to be except for this way. And for a lot of people, I think that's a hard jump if they're used to sort of doing the regular life and what they've been doing for so long, right? People are afraid of the change, afraid of the unknown. But the funny thing about that is that literally everything is unknown. We don't know what's going to happen even 30 seconds from now. And yet we've created this idea in our head that we do. but we don't. Right. And I think it's been a little bit jarring for a lot of people over the last couple of years with everything going on in the world, seeing how uncertain and unknown life can be. And that's been causing a lot, like we're at record levels of mental health disorders and stuff this last couple of years, right? It's skyrocketed because it's like people's realities are crumbling as they knew them. But in actuality, people like, yourself and myself who dive into these types of ways of life, like we already know nothing is certain. Everything is unknown.
Yes,
unless you make it be something.
Yes. Well, it seems life is a free fall. And the problem is if you try to hold on to things, you make yourself miserable. It is like, you shouldn't be attached to security, for instance. So I'm going to do nothing until I get my pension, because you might just die that day you receive your first pension. And life is like this. It's insecurity. The insecurity is there. And that's a good thing, because it avoids that we are going into this, what is that movie called? Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, it's like really like this for many people. Every day is the same. And so when you don't learn from your life, then you're frustrated, you're stuck, and you don't find the meaning. Because the meaning is not out there in the sky. The meaning is what you are giving it. So if I want certain experience in my life, I can give the meaning of this, because now I know what I believed first. Now I know it. I have experienced it. And if that is the purpose of life, to have those experiences, I'm talking about learning experiences, experiences you really want to have in life. Otherwise, life, you will have regrets, and you don't want regrets. And if you don't get them, then it's automatic. There's no choice. You will not be that. You will not have that meaning in your life. That's what I think. So, quick question: what can you tell us a little bit about your book, like the table of content, or what is the conclusion? What is the premise?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a part memoir, part actionable personal development book. So for people that are, if saying to you, get out of your head resonates. I know a lot of people that are stuck in their head, stuck wishing for things. Right. And so really it's, each chapter goes a little bit about my personal experience, because from my experience, when I was learning about mindfulness, like 10 years ago, it was really either you were learning from sort of like Buddhist monks and that type of very contemplative type of learnings, or I was learning from these neuroscientists. And I found, trying to find how this relates into my life became a bit of a challenge, right? Like, how do I bring that into my every single day life, these big monstrous theories and all of that? So that's what I set out to do in this book, is sort of bring it into a very personal experience. Like, this is what happens in life. Here are the theories. This is how I put them together. And the feedback that I've gotten so far has been really awesome. Like, it's super easy to implement. You can see how that goes in your day-to-day life. And it really teaches about some of the main mindfulness practices. And a lot of what we were talking about earlier, like there's a whole chapter on attachment. Like, what is attachment? How do you get over things, right? How do you let things go? That's another one, right? Fear, all that stuff that we're creating in our mind, right? Attachment, even if, your beloved dog passes away, the pain that you feel is from the thoughts in your head about how you're going to miss them. Right? You start to create thoughts, and that's what causes you pain. And so it's really just shining a light on all the various thoughts and beliefs and ideas that we create in our mind each and every day, and how they're holding us back and how you can sort of move forward. And I weave that in with my own story from before I went to Thailand, through Thailand, Italy, relationships, all these different things, and how all of these concepts come into play in our day-to-day modern life.
Yes. What would you think was the premise of the book in the beginning? Why did you write it, and what was the conclusion you came at the end?
I wrote it. I've always had this nudge to write a book, but it took me a really long time to figure out what it wanted to be about. And it really just comes back to that idea of seeing so many people who are suffering in life just by, like you said, going, Groundhog Day, that hamster wheel, right? And not realizing that they're a prisoner of only their own mind, that their own mind is the only thing holding them back from creating a better, more fulfilling life for themselves. And a lot of people, like I have like a 12-week coaching program that takes people right from where they are now, and we get them well on their way to creating their most amazing dream life. But some people aren't ready for that yet, right? They're not ready to like jump in on that level and like start taking action. And so this book to me was just that first step, right? Like start to understand, start to see. And then from there, we can sort of move forward and really create the best life for yourself.
Yes. Well, it took me a long time. It was hard work, actually. When I remember I was the first days in Costa Rica, where I actually almost stayed 10 years. Together with Nicaragua and places like this. When I had my e-commerce store, not long ago, I came back and I now live in Mallorca, Spain. But I came back to Austria first for 2 years. But it took me a long time to realize one thing. I was just separating first from my wife. And so it took me a long time actually to realize, what is it that I want in life? What is it that I want in life? And in order to know this, I knew I had to actually get to know myself better. And it's interesting, in Tibetan Buddhism, the definition of meditation is to familiarize yourself with yourself. So it is about who am I? And that brought me to wisdom tradition and all this, and remembering a few spiritual experiences I had when I was in India. Ultimately, it is hard work to know your lifestyle. What can I take away without being unhappy? What can I not suspend at all because I need it in order to be happy, right? And then how do I get all this? How do I go after it? And it actually comes to you, if you are the right person, if you're a being, and then it does come to you, because you can't really attract it with your ego. And ego is the mind. You're talking about the kind of mind, because there are also lots of definitions for mind. And Buddhism has a very good connotation. It's the big mind. Everything is the mind. But in our society, we are thinking about the mind as an annoyance, a disturbance, and that's correct. It's just our connotation, because it draws us to the past, and that's suffering, and it goes into the future, and that is insecurity, and that's where we live all the time, but not in the now. Not in the present moment. And it's only actually here that we can realize who we really are. And we are surrounded with this incredible emptiness and void, which is not a bad thing. It's like, this is clarity. We're still there. The phenomena, who we are, still there. And, but that's the journey. And, it's hard work. It's hard work to think about it, to come up with it, because, it's so easier to judge things. That's always like human tendency, right? To judge things and say quickly, well, I'm a victim, and I have to work hard than others. They just inherit money, and I cannot live because my mother will cry if I go on a journey. It's hard to liberate yourself from it, but you have to, because ultimately you don't want to be stuck and not experiencing the things which your innermost desire tells you to do.
Yes. And a few things I just want to respond to that, if I may, is, well, one, just to what you just said there is, right? Like, when I live by this idea of like, I'd much rather get to the end of my life, I'm laying on my deathbed and I'm thinking, oh my God, I cannot believe I did all of that. Right. Versus being like, man, I still never got to that one day or someday where I was gonna blah, blah, blah. Right. So many people are waiting for the perfect time, the perfect whatever. And for a lot of people, that just never comes. Right. And what you said before about, really, you have to go, you got to go in. Right. And I know that there's a lot of programs out there and really, really action centric, like, okay, write down what you want, and then we're going to go for it. And it's like, okay, but we're missing often. And this is what a lot of my clients have said to me, like, why are we spending the first 4 sessions doing all these meditations and things? I'm like, dude, just trust me, right? Just trust me. Okay. Because that's the difference between creating something that you think that you want. And oftentimes when we don't go deep inside and do these different meditations and exercises like that, we go back into the thinking brain idea of what we want. And what I found with a lot of my clients in the past is that when they go from the thinking mind, they come in being like, okay, this is what I want. And I'm like, cool. Yeah. Just humor me and let's do these exercises. And we do meditations and we do visualizations and we do all these different things. And all of a sudden they're like, whoa, that's not what I want at all. Like, yeah, because your soul, right? When you go inside and you tap into that soul, your soul's purpose, what your soul truly wants, that's very different than what your brain thinks that you want or the thinks that you should want. And a lot of that is programmed by what society is telling us, our parents are telling us, schools, government, etc. Right. And so tapping into our true nature, our true selves is the most important way, I would say, to get not only the vision of what you want, but to actually achieve it. And that's the difference when you feel it from that soul level versus that thinking logical brain level.
Yeah, when you feel it. That's actually an interesting aspect of all religions in the East, for instance, and even in the West, it's like really about philosophies too, poets too. It's like, how do I become the person I am with a mind, heart, brain, heart, unity, harmony? Because when the mind, the brain goes in this direction and the heart, the feeling is not there, then it's out of sync, the whole thing. It's not possible to achieve anything because you have to feel it in order to attract it, right? And so I think it is absolutely is a bad word here, but I think it's so funny that we are going through life and we think it's so great to acquire this knowledge and that knowledge and this skill and that skill without ever getting to know who we really are. We have this imagination of abstractions of all kinds of mythological content, which sometimes is packaged into religions, and we believe it, We believe in that angry God because there is this, there's this in the Bible, But is this really true? Is this really true? And nevertheless, even if that God is very angry up there, maybe, it doesn't matter. Because I need to know who I am. I came here, and I don't consider that God is even necessary for this existence because it's magic. And we all have the self. If there's a big self, fine. I'm agnostic in that sense, but I'm not praying to one. I think that, in the East, there is this question. It's not there. It's like more like in the Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition, where people are atheists and where people are like juxtaposition, right, to this belief, which is a belief, one has to be very tolerant because even, in Hinduism, you have the different meditation style, yoga styles, and one is bhakti yoga, and there is the devotion to a God. So people have that, and maybe there is something good in it. I believe so, but it's not for everybody. Some people are more philosophical, and others are, they like to be action only. They learn from action. They help others. The karma yogis, right? And then there is the scientific yoga, the Raja yoga. But, people, and Carl Jung talked about it. There is this, we have to recognize that there are several types of personalities. For instance, even a podcast, some people just like to listen to it. Others want to see a video on YouTube, right? People are different. And, I think it's for me, it's just a paradox that we are so unconcerned about the question, who am I? Like, not as a personality, because personalities change also, like you have roles, and the roles, they are not with whom you should identify. You're playing those roles in order to gain, again, experiences and to, like the role of a father, right? Or the role of a CEO. But these are roles for experiences. You gain those experiences, you know the things which you first believed, and you are now more advanced. But ultimately, these roles are not there for you to identify. It's like a chess game. There are these chess pieces, and these are the roles. And like in Hinduism, there's this metaphor, but you are the player. And whether you lose or not, it doesn't matter because you will learn from this experience. But you shouldn't identify with the chess pieces because you're the player. And the same thing, I don't, for me, it's a paradox why we are not thinking this is the most important question to ask ourselves. Because then from there comes then the dream life. Because now when you are doing the meditation, when you familiarize yourself with yourself, then you ask the question also, what do I truly desire? And that is so important for motivation. And if you don't have that clarity, then you will quickly quit on things you want to really do, but you don't do it afterwards. So Kandis, you are a dream life strategist. So we learned already now that you have this framework which you put in your book, and then you start with meditation in your programs, like a 12-week program, right? And so what you want to help people first is to get out of their head. In other words, get from the map, identifying yourself with the map, get to the territory, to life itself. Being instead of thinking. And so the question is, after the meditation, after you get them closer to answering or feeling who they are, like being, what are the next steps in your program to help them achieve their dream life?
Yeah, we start with, really getting to know ourselves or themselves. I guide my clients through these, practices to really start to understand themselves on a deeper level, which a lot of people haven't dove into quite on this length. And some of that is meditations. I'm also a trained NLP practitioner. So that's neuro-linguistic programming, which basically allows me to help you to tap into your subconscious mind so we can release things that have been blocking you and holding you back mentally, right? We have all this mental programming. So this is a large part of it too, right? Is that there's a lot of things, like sometimes you'll find out that this thing that happened to you when you were 2 is showing up in your life every day because your brain attaches to it, right? Our brain is designed to try to keep us safe, try to keep us well, but in actuality, it often latches onto things and holds them so tightly because it doesn't want them to happen again. So it's always like on guard, right? So it keeps you from actually being your true self. And it keeps you from going out there and doing the things that you want. And so we tap into these types of things using neuro-linguistic programming, as well as mindfulness and meditation to really understand where you are now, what might be blocking you. And once we sort of get a nice visualization around there, yes, we hop into, okay, what's next, right? And creating that vision from that place, like I said earlier, right? That deep, deep inside soul place, right? What is your true desires? If nobody was ever going to tell you it was stupid, if nobody was ever going to tell you whatever, what do you really want? And then we work out how we make that possible. And I think a lot of people, this is the key, right? We say like, oh, I want to have $5 million. Well, why? A lot of people with $5 million aren't happy. So we really chunk it down. Like, what is $5 million going to give you? Oh, well, then I can buy a house for my family. Great. And what's that going to give you? Security and love and this. Okay. That's what we're going for. Right. And so we move out of that again, that thinking space, and we move into the feeling. When you wake up in the morning, how do you want to feel? And that's what we focus on. And that's what makes creating the dream life so much more possible than people often think at the start, right? Because we go back, we focus on the feelings instead of the outside things. How do you want to feel in the morning? And then we work together to make sure that you're waking up each morning and you're feeling that way. And it's a process, right? But you ultimately can wake up feeling however it is that you think that those things are going to give you. And you can start to feel that within just a few months.
That is so important because it's the being aspect, right? It's what we neglect often, our emotions, the good emotions. Because if you don't think that way, if you don't get to this point that you wake up in the morning and you feel the right feelings, then you feel the wrong feelings. You feel anxiety, you feel worries, you feel anger, you feel all these things, So you can change it because, your mind only has so much content to put in there in a way, I mean, if you have positive feelings and conducive feelings for your happiness, the other emotions will not show up because there's just two of them cannot be together in a sense, right? They're in the background, I'm not saying you can completely overcome fear and anxiety, but also when I go back, because this conversation is so interesting to me, when you go back to, let's say, what you truly desire. So, there is a lot of myth behind desire, Buddhism says, desire is a bad thing, but it doesn't say so because it's bad translated, really. If you really understand what they actually mean, what the Buddha actually meant, it's the Sanskrit, it's the Pali, it's metaphorical, it's really something else. It's like more like ego referenced. But, it's in our culture, if you think about desire, if you talk about desire, often this play of good and evil comes in, because you might even think certain desires are not good, whereas you have them as a being. And so we should understand a little bit about that there is really no good without the bad, and there is no bad which doesn't even have a good in it. It's like the duality of it, and it's beautiful. So we have a little action in the world. It's like, you can look at a movie, and after 10 or 15 minutes, there's no plot whatsoever. It's going boring, there's no villain. I'm not saying that I want to be a villain. I just say, in a certain relational manner, good and evil is not a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it goes out of order, when it goes to the extreme, when people lose their consciousness. But then the evil can be really overwhelming, right? But the thing is that we also have to broaden our understanding of the duality, because, it's like, I always think, when you are having this in the background, the shadow side, right? We all have the shadow side. It's like the yin and yang. There's a sunny side of the mountain, the shadow side of the mountain. That is always there, but it's not dominating you. It's like the weather is, when it snows in Austria, it's really cold outside. But then you go inside and you have your hot soup and your nice, cozy living room. And you know what? You look out the window and it's really cold out there and it's snowing everywhere. But, it's just the background, because you are really feeling comfortable in the warmth, right? In the warmth and comfortable in your house. So that is the same thing, I think, with duality. So when we think about our desire, our original desire, we really have to let it out, and we have to really understand this is the origin of everything. That's where the motivation starts. When the motivation starts, then the vision, the faith to do it, the beliefs, and then the knowledge. And that's what we want. We want the knowledge of the experience. We want to have it experienced.
Of course.
Yeah. And that's, I think, but you have a wonderful framework and a nice, program to get there. It makes perfect sense to me. I don't know much about neuro-linguistic programming. I read the books, like from Tony Robbins. And I understand the power means really that you have the capability to do it. So the inner power, when you talk about power within, it's really, am I able to do it? Am I able to make that money? Am I able to make afterwards that journey? Because if I'm not believing this, that I have that power inside, then it will never happen. And that's not only this, that it never happens, but when you get stuck, you get depressed. You get all this negative stuff. But also, one more time about the brain you talked, this was so interesting also. I think, in mental health, right, we see suddenly the brain as the overarching organ. Everything is brain. When you can control the brain, when you can do this and that with the brain, then you will be happy. I don't think so. I think the brain is an organ. It has to be seen in the context of all the other, what they call chakras in India. Like the heart has a brain. Every energy center in you has a brain. They have to harmonize with each other. But our brain, which makes us think, well, whose brain is it anyway? Maybe it is the brain of the universe. Maybe it's the way the universe wants to reflect on itself. Maybe it's the universe understanding itself through the brain, through our brain, and that we should always see it a little bit more spiritual. How does the brain receive thoughts? Does it create thoughts, or do they come from the outside? And then all this chemical reaction stuff. So I love the advancement of mental health, understanding the brain more, researching the brain, because the brain obviously is a very, very important organ. But the heart has its own brain. The heart has its own memories, and the heart is the feeling. So that is so important, because otherwise we will never ever attract what we really want if we don't feel it first.
And we have the gut brain, right? So when so many people say like, oh, I've got that gut feeling, and they don't follow it because they think that they just are crazy, or, like they're like, oh, whatever, it's not a real thing. No, it's a thing, right? You feel things predominantly, like you said, in your chakras, But the three dominant ones, right? You have your thinking mind, you have your heart center, which swells up when certain things are very emotional or whatever, right? And then you have your gut, and you also have your sort of sacral, which is just under sort of the rib cage tucked up in there. And I feel like people feel so much in those four, but we've been brought up in a society that tells us that the brain is the number one thing, right? To what you're saying. Like, if we truly want to live our best life, we need to tap into all of them, and we need to learn how to let them work together. And that, you know, the first thing I do with my clients, and they're like, oh, I don't know why I've been feeling this way, or I don't know, for like a week, I've been feeling like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. And I bring them through this exercise where we check in with our chakras. We understand, we receive messages from whichever one is feeling blocked, and then we carry on. Right. And it's this crazy, powerful thing that we often just try to get out of these feelings by just thinking our way out. and we can't. We
want to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. But if we stop and listen to the part of our body that's feeling that discomfort, if we stop and listen, we can actually ask for wisdom. And it's amazing, like the information that will come up when you actually tap into that. And you're like, wow, so many times I've been feeling some uneasiness, and I'll do these exercises, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was bothering me so much. Mm-hmm. And then when I can understand that, I can learn to let that go, and boom, it's fixed. But if I sat there trying to think about it all day, I'd be so confused.
Because the solution is not in the thought.
Yes.
The solution is, and that is so important. It's like the way you expressed it was beautiful, to listen to the wisdom which you get from your own body, because you are, in a sense, living. The body is like the world, you know. It's not the society, but it's the world, because it's so dependent on everything, and oxygen, sunshine, everything, right? Food. It's the world. The body is the world. It's just like the way we communicate with the world, and we are in the world, and we couldn't exist for a second without the world. However, we are not the body. That's what the Eastern yogis, whatever, say, and it's understandable. We're not even the mind, and you are having an interesting view on the mind also. It's disturbing us sometimes, most of the time. It's very useful, absolutely, just like the ego is useful, can be useful, but you always have to know that's not you. Mm-hmm. You have to identify yourself as something beyond that, and you don't even know it intellectually, you feel it. And when you listen to that wisdom, for me, that's the only way, because you can so easily get lonely and all these negative emotions. But when you start meditating every day a little bit, it changes your world completely. Mm-hmm. And you have to download YOLO Revolution, because your website, KandisJames.com, and it will be in the show note, of course. It's the title of it is the YOLO Revolution. And you have a podcast, you have a book, you have programs. Very important to visit this website if somebody wants to connect with you. That's the way to go. KandisJames.com. Tell me what the YOLO Revolution means, please.
The YOLO Revolution is, in the last maybe 5-6 years, we've seen hashtag YOLO everywhere, right? Like, you only live once. Oh, okay. And it's become this sort of millennial trend of this YOLO, right? But it's so much deeper than that, right? You do truly only know that you're living this one time. And other than that, everything is unknown. We already talked about that, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's, how do we transcend the programming that we've received that, this is how life is supposed to be, and you're supposed to do it this way, and this is what's right, and that's what's wrong. This is what beauty is. This is what beauty is not, right? This is what success is. This is what success is not. We've been told this since the moment that we were born, put in school, started watching TV. We've learned these things, and it's leaving people miserable and out of touch with themselves. And, mental health is skyrocketing, as a problem. And for me, it's this revolution. Like, let's take back our own power. As a human being, we have this infinite amount of power within us to create something beautiful, to have a sense of more freedom and fulfillment and peace and joy each and every day, no matter what is going on. And I feel like we have had that somewhat stripped away from us generation after generation as we have been taught to live inside this little box. And so for me, it's to join this revolution. Let's get out of that. You only live once, and let's take back our power and take back our ability to create a life that lights us up, no matter what other people are saying, and just get out there and live your best gosh darn life, because it's so much better to get to the end and be like, wow, that was amazing. Yeah. Instead of, sitting around thinking, is this truly all there is? Because that's what I used to think. And that's what a lot of people who come to me are thinking, right? Is this all there is? Shouldn't I be happier? And it's like, yes, you should be happier. You can be happier. And to do that, we need to band together and take back our power as human beings and move forward in creating our best lives.
Yes. Well, there would be a lot of tombstones or the stones, or the graveyards, which could say just a few words like, that was weird. But I think you live only once. I get the feeling through meditation and through studying wisdom tradition that we definitely live only once as this character, this personality. Mm-hmm. But there is a way, when you have a different cosmology or different mythology, like in Hinduism, which is the origin of Buddhism also, of course, because the mythology is pretty much the same. But mm-hmm. It is like this reincarnation thing. And, I think we don't know exactly. But what makes sense to me is always nice. It's like everything we know about the world or ultimate reality, what we call, is like is kind of a model, like in science, mm-hmm. a model, right? We don't know 100%. But I could imagine, and it's not just imagine with my mind, it's like feeling it, that it would make sense that there is a self behind mm-hmm. all this, which does not have to disappear, because the phenomena, my body and all this, dies. Mm-hmm. There is, and in Buddhism, it's a suchness, tathata, they call it. And it's like, you even are the void which surrounds you, and it goes out like, to do infinite space, because the way you are centered in the axis mundi, in the world axis, so to speak, it's unique. So it goes out there uniquely, and there's no circumference. The circumference of that realm, of that circle you're living and you are, is actually boundless. It's infinite. But that is very philosophical. People could always say we don't know. And but it doesn't hold us back to think in that direction. What if, it could be that my life is a series of that my existence is a series of lives. And what is wrong with that ultimately? I cannot remember any, but there are interesting books, for instance, of testimonials where people have experienced it. And the main thing is this here is life is happening to us as an event, but it happens to us in an illusion of time. Life could itself be a dream. That's what the Upanishads say, like I talked about it before. It's like life is not permanent, right? Life ends. That's why it's a dream, because dreams have an ending. And, you can, if it's true, then we feel it. If it's not true, we cannot really feel it. And I think there is more to who we really are than just this personality we have in this life. But that's, of course, speculation. On my part and my studies, because I do respect like Tibet and Buddhism. They studied thousands of years, And some people say that's a problem because we are living in a modern world. It's not applicable. No, it's not true. Because if you are like meditating as a people, like for thousands of years, they know something about meditation,
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what? This was so interesting. And we will definitely post all this in the show notes, and I would just read a few titles you have in your podcast, all very super interesting titles, like Get Unstuck, so you can take action, final episode, Get out of your head, questions you need to ask yourself, Dream Life, what does it actually mean? I really think that a lot of listeners, they will jump on your website and have a look at this, because you have this interesting topics there. And I think it's so important for people to get the right way to happiness. It doesn't mean that you have some kind of tactics to get some temporarily happy, because happiness does come a little bit with That's the background. It's the duality with feeling sorrow and a little bit suffering. That's because that's human. You can't be saying that I was a human or I'm a human if you don't have this experience, because everybody has it, right? But you want to be like getting this in the right proportion. So just like with positive and negative thoughts, we will always have negative thoughts, but if they are now 4 negative thoughts and 1 positive one, why not change it to 4 positive ones and 1 negative one, right? So we can work on the balance and on the harmony of all those things. And Kandis, James, it was really so nice, Kandis, to have you on my podcast. Can you repeat one more time the website where people can connect with you?
Yeah, it's KandisJames.com, and that's with a Kandis. Nobody gets that. KandisJames.com is the website. You can find all about the programs, the podcast, the book, everything is all there, plus some awesome, I've even got a few free programs and stuff if you want to get your feet wet and just see what it's all about.
Yeah, let's just do it, Let's get those experiences. Let's go out there, That's why we're here. Thank you, Kandis. Thank you for having been on the show. It was a real pleasure.
It was a great conversation. It was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun and a great learning experience. Thank you, my dear listeners, for joining us today. The recap of the show with bullet points are in the show notes with all the links mentioned during the interview. But it's all basically just one website, which we just mentioned earlier. If you like this podcast, well, it's on the website also, ownbythebeach.com. That's where the podcast is. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to have you here again for our next episode. This is your host, Joseph Schinwald. Thank you and goodbye until we meet again.